Good afternoon, evening, maybe some morning. I'm seeing a lot of different locations in this chat. Shout out to Virginia, Utah, Southern California, DC area. Thank you all from all over the country for joining us today for the What's New at Desmos session. I am very excited for this, hopefully first of many sessions where we'll be able to share with you all the excellent things we've been working on at Desmos. As Sade said, I am Isaiah Genece, relatively new product manager here on the Desmos team, been with them since about late June and have loved every second. And I am super excited to first demo a few of the smaller things that we've released over the summer, as well as segue into Suzanne and Andrew's demo for the main event, Actions. So without further ado, the first thing I would like to do is share the Desmos Help Center. This is a new consolidated location for all of the various support articles, announcements, frequently asked questions, collected into one convenient location that is fully searchable and easily accessible at help.desmos.com. This is the place that I went just earlier today to remind myself of all the great things that Desmos has worked on and released. And if any of you find something new on Desmos and find yourself asking, that's interesting, when did they do this? You can find that here on What's New. It might have been a month ago, it might have been a few days ago. Desmos is constantly working on bringing you all new and exciting features to make your use of the product and teaching as easy as possible. So a couple of the things that I wanted to demo for you today include some features that we've released for activities. The first of which is our new correctness feature. So if I jump over to a sample dashboard that I have here, we've always been, hopefully, familiar with the correctness indicators on our summary view in dashboards. Now, if you go into a particular student view, you have access to this new toggle that turns on correctness for the particular components of that activity. This correctness will persist as you go between different student screens, and it will show up just to the side of the featured student work. Correctness is also available partially. In other words, if I have a student screen where there is a component that has correctness, either assigned by answer key or by our computation layer scripting language, you can turn on correctness for just the gradable components, but still be able to review all of the student thinking that's available in a particular screen. So we are always assessing and showing the correctness for those components which have that correctness available, but leaving all the great meaty student work for you to review at your leisure. And again, this correctness feature is available across all components within Activity Builder. So even for this multiple choice, which has randomized choices between students, I can see what is correct or not correct without having to actually look at which choice is which and what the students have picked. So that is just one feature that we released not a few weeks ago, which I hope makes reviewing student work and assessing the progress of your students just a little bit easier. The next thing I would like to go into is about collections. Hopefully we are all familiar with collections as well, but what we might not know is that you can now create collections within your collections. So those of you who are using collections to bring all of the activities that you frequently use or activities that you have for a particular class, you can have those in a collection, and you can even put them into sub-collections. So it's as simple as editing your collection, grabbing the URL for the collection that you'd like to add. I chose this collection name that is a little bit obnoxious and redundant. And sorry, folks. There we go. I paste in the URL, and now the collection is within my collection. I hit publish, I can see the activities, and I can see the collection. So this is another feature that we worked on just a couple of months ago that hopefully makes it even easier for you to organize all the activities and all the various collections that you have within your Desmos dashboard. The last thing that I would like to show you all today has to do with joining students joining your courses. So if you look at our student approval codes, we all hopefully know that you can get your students to jump into Desmos through either putting in this code on student.desmos.com or by copying this link for your students to join. But we now have a feature where if someone joins a new course, which I just did on my other screen here, you will get an approval flow. And this was unfortunately a already approved student because it's me. So let me join with a new student that I might not be familiar with. Apologies, I am joining from my other screen right now. There it goes. And that student, which I do not recognize, can pop up in this new approval workflow. So I recognize this person. It looks a lot like me with a 2 next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this person. And now that student has access to all the social features in a particular class. If a student joins a session before that student is approved, they can still submit responses to the various components of that activity, but they will not be able to view the responses of other students and other interactive things that happen within the course for approved students. So this just helps make creating and joining classes a little bit more secure. There is a question I see come in regarding correctness. Can the student see the correctness once you turn it on? Is it possible to make comments on a particular response? I'll start with the correctness part. So the students can see, depending on how you are sharing your screen. So if, for example, I go back to the dashboard I was just on, and I open up a student view, if I were to, per se, share this with my students on Zoom like I am now, they can see everything that I have here. But if students access the work from their side, they will see only what shows up within the exact activity. So if I am, for example, looking through student work and trying to evaluate how students are doing, then when I turn on this correctness toggle, this is only seen by me as the teacher. If I wanted to share this work with students, then that would be available, or rather visible, if I were to share my screen as an example. Another thing to note is on the teacher view, this correctness toggle is also available. So that's another way for you to see your correctness and again, go into particular student screens and see how that works. There was a second part of that question that has to do with feedback. And you are still able to provide feedback on any student screen by clicking this feedback option right here. And again, you can access that from the summary view, from teacher view, any way that you normally get to your student screens. This feedback window is available with this button here. And if I send feedback, I get a little flag that shows that I have sent feedback, so I can know at a high level who has received a response from me. Excellent. Those are just a few of the great things that we've been working on. If I go back to the What's New page, you can see that there are bullets and bullets more of awesome things that we've released in the past few months. I just wanted to demo a few of them to warm up, appetize you before we get into the main event, which of course is actions. And actions blows simulations and clickable objects of the graphing calculator out of the water, a brand new, really exciting interaction that our interaction developers, Suzanne and Andrew, are going to take you through. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. Hi, everybody. So good to be here. Andrew, I think, is going to be our screen sharer.
Yes. Oh boy, so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on a very high level, Suzanne and I want to show off actions for you all, show a few places that we've seen it used in the curriculum or out in the wild by our users. And then we're going to do a live build together where Suzanne has left a challenge for me to recreate a particular screen. I'm super excited. Any preamble from you, Suzanne?
You pretty much covered it, but I gotta say we've been using kind of a pre-release version of this for quite a while now, and I've just been so excited for the moment this becomes polished and ready to release to the world. And here we are. Actions are live. Can't wait to look at them here.
They are. And so this live stream webinar is one way to learn about actions and to see them in use. But for your own continuing learning, I do highly recommend this actions article at help.desmos.com. It will show you a bunch of stuff that we won't actually talk about today. So let me load that up and then toss a question to Suzanne. What are actions?
That's a great question, Andrew. I would say my personal definition for action is just that it's a way to update a value in the calculator by clicking something rather than having to slide a slider or anything like that. And you might say, so what's the big deal about that when we have sliders? But the thing that I love that's so unique about actions is that you can recursively define things. Like I could say, well, right now the value of B is 5. I want B to become what it is currently +1. And we've never been able to do that in the past. And the other thing that to me feels really powerful about this is just that using only sliders, we were never able to do consecutive and non-commutative events. Like I couldn't reflect something over a line and then shift it. Versus if I shift it first and reflect it over the line second, I'm actually going to end up often with a different transformation. And so actions allow us to do things in sequence and remember each step of the way and do the next step of the sequence based on what's already happened. And it's just super powerful.
Awesome explanation. I'm going to flip over and start showing some things. But first, I've got my account here, and I want to make sure that I activate this. So under the account settings, I've gone to the advanced section, and I'm just going to hit that little checkbox in there. If you forget to do that, the graph will pop up a helpful little message about like, hey, this thing that you're looking at uses actions. Do you want to enable that for your account? But I don't want that little popping up for all of the demos here. So I'm just going to check that box and going to start with some of the places that it exists inside of our curriculum. This is grade 6. Nope, this is grade 7.
It's grade 7. It's the first lesson of the whole year in grade 7, and it actually uses actions.
This is really cool. So screens 1 and 2 here are part of this experience. I will make myself a lovely little star. That's not what stars look like.
That's okay. It's an X. It's an X, sure. A butterfly.
And then on screen 2, I can hit print and get a copy of that image, but that's not the action part. The action part are these plus and minus buttons where I can get a scaled copy of my image.
Ooh, fancy, fancy, fancy. Oh, it's so much bigger now.
That's really fun. It is littered throughout 7th grade. There's a few other places. I think this one is a grade 6 example.
Also the very first lesson of the whole year for 6th graders.
Really, as soon as we got the ability to do these sorts of things, we started putting it everywhere.
Everywhere, anywhere we can, we want to use them.
Changing the color.
So we're using the clickables to change the color there. Yep. Okay.
So a lot of the actions will be like ways for you to interact with the graph, things to click on and such. But you can also get uses like this, where the movement of the crabs is actually a recursive definition. Its next position is where it was plus a little bit more. And using the actions, we are able to just launch that into the graph, and we can still click and have interactions pop up as well.
Those crabs are so cute. Shout out to Sean Sweeney who built those. They're very, very cute. And our art team who built the beautiful cuteness of the crabs. Sean makes them walk, but the art team builds the cute crabs. What else we got here?
Yes, well, speaking of shout outs, here's a few shout outs that we have for our community of users who jumped onto this when it was announced. This one is from Twitter, from @BrianFrank. I can push on this cart and it will react to that movement. And whoa, I can turn on friction and have it slow to a stop.
This one is just so much fun.
I love pushing this thing and just watching it stop and then go push it again.
And you can make the mass heavier and lighter. Yeah, that's a really fun one.
So that one's great, awesome. We've got this kind of puzzle exploration also coming in from Twitter's. I can click and move the little character around. And like, if I didn't know that this was inside of Desmos, I would not expect this to be a graphing calculator with a grid and X and Y axes behind it.
Same. It's just that this one is super impressive. And this is what we're talking about with the ability to have sequenced actions that all depend on each other. Like you're pushing that block. We could not do that with just sliders and just leave that block there. Yeah, this is such a fun one. Also very difficult. I've tried to solve this. It's very challenging.
Speaking of things that are very challenging, this one comes from our Reddit community. There was a challenge a little bit ago to do mazes inside of Desmos, and this user implemented it with actions. I just drag this around and my little player dot shifts around. Oh, that's a dead end over there. And it's just brilliant the way that our users are able to take the mathematical equations and really just transform it.
We have a question here in the Q&A about what if your account doesn't have an advanced options setting? And what I would say is every account should have that. If you're not seeing that, it could be that you're in teacher.desmos.com or student.desmos.com instead of at the calculator specific URL. But if you're still having trouble, I would say just feel free to reach out to support.desmos.com and we will help you get that enabled. We will make it happen for you.
Perfect. Thank you for keeping an eye on the chat from you, Suzanne. I did just see a comment from one of our Discordians and Reddit members. So hooray, shout out to those groups of people. This also comes from
this Reddit. Is such a good one. Look at that, and it just devolves into chaos with slightly different, I want to say they're like a 1,000th of a unit separated from each other to begin with, and then they just...
Yeah, trying to write explicit equations for this would be a pretty big headache. But with this actions update, take your previous state, make it a new state, so clean and so wonderful.
It's beautiful. Okay, Andrew. Okay. Let's build some stuff. So
let's do this. I'm going to close my other tabs here, get a nice clean workspace. Suzanne, this is what you've challenged me with, right?
Oh, yeah. Can you open that? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is based on that printer that we saw a little earlier. Got a few upgrades because I was just excited to use our new features. Instead of using an action button in the activity builder, we just have a little print button there now. We can change the colors of this. And my challenge to you, Andrew, is what about this do you think you could live build in the next 15, 20 minutes and show off in the process how to use actions? And maybe before we do, maybe you can talk about just where you see actions in this.
Ooh, that's a brilliant question.
Little screen here.
So I'm kind of moving my mouse around to see what things respond with a little cursor that lets me know I can click on stuff. So I see this print button, and I've already clicked that a few times, the plus and the minus, and this thing changes along with that. That's pretty neat. And then the final place that I see it is here with my color options, letting me pick depending on which of those things I click on.
Nice. All right. So what do you want to, what would you like to build about this, Andrew? Because I don't think we'll build the whole thing in just 15 or 20 minutes, but I see you cracking your knuckles there. Let's do this.
Yeah, well, no, you're right. I'm not going to rebuild this whole thing. I think let's start with making a shape and then just kind
Okay.
of see where it takes us. No,
You
let's
look
put that
very
at 1.
confident about these numbers. I feel like these might be headed somewhere specific.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just like randomly putting down points. Definitely not pre-planned where these values were going to
No
go.
pre-planning,
Not at
none
all.
whatsoever.
No, no, no. Which is
All
why
right.
now that
I'm
I've typed those
seeing,
random values. Ha! Oh, I mean, that's cute. That's not what I was expecting, but it's cute.
you know what? I think, were you expecting a dog? I feel like earlier you said you were going to make a dog, but I'm going to say this looks a little bit to me like a seal, like a little sea lion.
Yes.
So we'll call it a little seal.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm going to store this into a point list so that I can manipulate it later. Give me a few extra lines
That's
here.
great.
But really, like the core of the printer and the reason that we're using it in our curriculum is this idea of a scale factor. So I definitely want to have that.
Yes. So now with this, you can slide it to manipulate it. You can sort of see that. How might we use clickables or actions to make some of those changes?
Yeah, great question. Let me just like slide this down. So right now I'm using the slider to change that value, but I could use the new actions thing to say, make that exactly equal to half.
How did you get that little arrow there?
Let me do it with the keypad this time.
Okay.
I'm going to type S, and then in the keypad, I'm going to click the minus sign and the greater than symbol, which together just become the an arrow symbol if you're typing in text.
So shorthand for arrow is minus and then greater than. Love it.
Perfect. So then I now have 2 actions which will change that parameter value. I can make it equal 0.5 or I can make it equal to 2.
Okay.
And that's fun, but I think what I want is instead to go like to take what it used to be and add a bit more to it.
I think that's a great idea, Andrew. Well done.
Well, thank you. I thought of it myself. Not at all inspired by a printer.
It is kind of a fun printer. Okay, so now it's getting smaller and now it's getting larger.
Turn off the fill.
So essentially an action can just be done in the expression list. We could just click that little arrow to the left of it. But that does not feel very interactive yet.
No, it doesn't. So let me put this as a label. Let me go like smaller and then do a little bit of formatting. And then I'll have a similar one for larger.
Okay.
And a little bit of formatting. And now I want to attach an action to this. So I'll long press to get all of these different options. Use my new clickable.
Clickable. So that's new. That hasn't always been there, Andrew.
It has not always been there. I'm going to say that on this click, I want to make it smaller. And I just came up with that name. It doesn't actually exist yet, but it's this one. It's line 7.
That's the action that makes things smaller.
So I can.
So you can name an action and then call it from somewhere else.
Yeah, define it.
Okay, now that's going to get powerful.
Suzanne, I don't know if you noticed, but in my label, I now have a little underline.
Yeah, could we turn off the grid just for a second so that that's a little bit more clear?
I'll do you one better. I'll turn it off permanently.
So the smaller is now clickable, and we can tell it's clickable because it has a little underline as if it's a link. Okay, that's great.
And my cursor becomes the little pointer thing. And if I click on it, it triggers that same action. Nothing's hooked up on the larger, so let me do that. Make larger. I should also say, I don't have to give this a name in the action. I could instead just type the full update and say, hey, do that thing when I click on it, and it will get larger.
Do you think that there is a benefit to naming an action?
I do. I really like having a name so that I can, make a change here, and everywhere that I've got a increase behavior, like I don't
Mhm.
have to copy paste this into a bunch of different areas to get that
Right.
new update. And actually, I think I'm going to combine these two things into one because they are very similar.
They're so similar. They're very similar.
Let me do change scale factor.
Okay.
This time it's going to be a function. And so I'm going to take that scale factor and I'm going to add whatever the input I want to that function.
And that's because the only difference between those two action rules was that one of them had plus 0.25 and the other had negative or minus 0.25. So when we have our little formula, it's that part that needs to become the variable because that's what's different about them.
Right. So I'll come here. This is the smaller one. And so I'll do negative 0.25.
Okay.
And then here, I will make it positive 0.25.
Okay.
And now everything just behaves as it was before. And if I decide that I want to do something different with this thing, oh man, what kind of different thing could I do? Okay, I got it.
Okay.
This is going to be great. Okay.
I'm very much looking forward to this.
Instead of changing S directly, I'm going to change a kind of like an in-between parameter called update.
Okay. I'm very much looking forward to where this is going.
Because now if I click on this, like the scale factor S doesn't change, but this S update does.
Yep.
So I would want my S to pull from the update value.
Right.
But I have to like trigger this action. That's not super great.
Andrew, I'm not going to lie. This feels like we're not going anywhere. It kind of feels like we're doing a lot of like one step forward and 2 or 3 steps backwards.
I think you're exactly right, because clicking here is not going to be a great experience. I'll tell you what though, I will come up to the ticker, a brand new option in the add expression section, and I will ask the calculator to run that update rule for me.
Okay.
So I've got it in here. I'm saying run that, please. I hit play, and then I do larger and smaller, and now all of a sudden it works again.
Okay, but wait. So why go through all that work when it was already updating without this kind of workaround? It was already getting larger when we clicked larger. It was already getting smaller when we clicked smaller.
Yeah, remember how you said we were doing 1 step forward, 2 steps back? I'm gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna add S and subtract S.
So you're literally going forward 1 step and then back 1 step. So we're doing nothing. Is that it?
I'm doing nothing.
Oh,
I'm doing nothing.
Well, we're just doing S update. Oh, wait a minute.
But what if I multiply that by like a half?
Okay, I'm a little scared. What's gonna happen?
Oh, you know what? Nothing's going to happen because this statement up here did not get that.
Can you just name that one so that when we change it down there?
I love it.
Right, we're going to give it R.
I'm going to use a capital R in my head that says run.
Yep,
Okay. Now,
all right.
Now we do this. Now we do this experiment. And shoop.
Whoa. I don't know if people at home can see this.
Yeah,
I can see it,
sure
and
either.
it's easing into its new size. I gotta say, that's actually a little unexpected. It's like a very nice little surprise.
So this
is because it's.
Yeah, this is my little hack for smoothing out transitions between things. I don't want my scale factor S to immediately jump to the next quarter step. I want it instead to kind of like ease into what that value is going to be. So
can you just scroll back down for a second, because I want to make sure that I understand this. So if we didn't have, right, so this little update rule R, S is going to become whatever S was plus, and then I think of S update, like the updated size minus the current size, as like the difference between them. And so if we're only increasing by like half the difference between them, That's why or a tiny fraction of the distance between them. That's why it has that easing look to it, because it doesn't go the whole distance. And each time it doesn't update, there's still a distance between them, but it's getting smaller and smaller. And so each time it's, what do they call it? Zeno's paradox?
Yeah, that's
Oh my
exactly what it
goodness.
is.
That's great.
See, this number is currently 0 because it's finished with the update. As soon as I click, there is some distance there, and it very quickly goes into the scientific notation for very, very small.
I love that.
So I love that. And you know, Suzanne, I might be happy with my build here.
Okay. I'm pretty happy with your build too. There's a couple of minor little bits of UI there that aren't in there from my printer. So
minor things.
Minor things. I mean, I will say that the art side of this, I have only Sebastian to thank for this. He did a fantastic job of making the desktop, the beautiful little iPad, the printer. So there's a lot of images in here. I did make one of the images. The print button was not part of the original, and I went in and I made that beautiful little green print button.
Nice.
But what would you like to explore first about this? What is one thing that you notice that's a part of this that is not part of what you built?
Yeah, well, so I noticed that in my build, I was using labels to get this plus and minus business.
Yeah.
I don't think those are labels.
They're not. Those are images. So if you open the line that says plus and minus buttons or subtraction, yeah. I have a very similar update rule, a little action to what you've got here. Action, I called mine action increment. It's incrementing. I have a list of sizes. There's a reason that I did it this way, and I think part of it has to do with wanting to also light up the little circles below. See that? And so I kind of wanted to get a little index from 1 to 5 of which of the sizes I was using, and then grab a size based on that. So my action increment just either ups the index, so my index goes from 1 to 5, or it decreases the index.
So I'm looking at this definition. You've called it action increment, and you're passing in a 1 for the plus and a -1 for the negative. I see it's defined here. And the first thing that I notice is that it's changing index size and turning it into this median statement.
Yeah, that's because I never want my index size to get larger than 5 or less than 1. So that's a handy little way to make sure that as I do this increase or this decrease, I never exceed or these certain bounds. You might notice there's something else going on in that action there.
Yeah, well, there's a comma in the middle of this expression.
Yeah.
And show paper becomes 0. Does this mean that you've got some value that's like a 1 right now, because I can see the paper, and if I increment,
yeah, so that's 0.
0.
So yes, that's exactly what happens. And then keep that there and press the print, and you're going to see show paper goes back to 1.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of faking whether the paper is there or not, just by deciding whether I'm showing or not showing the paper. Fancy little trick. Yeah, should we look at that print button? Because this actually uses something that is one of my personal favorites about using actions. So print, there we go, the print button. That action for printing, if we press that action once, either in the expression list or using the button there, you're going to see that the slider right below it starts back at the left and goes forward 1 time. Okay, so can you click on the slider settings there for the X paper? And this is something I'll often do. I'll make a use once, play once sort of a slider, hit play, and then get it to the end, and it just lives there. And then you can use an action to reset it to the beginning, and it'll play again. And so that's how I'm getting my paper to just look like it's sliding in from the left.
I see. And you've again got kind of a double action going on. So you're resetting it all the way to the left, and you're letting it know, hey, it's okay to show this paper again.
Right, right.
That is very clever.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, but Suzanne.
Yes.
That is very clever. But how are you making it change color?
Ooh, I'm so glad you asked. But first, you need to tell me which of those is your favorite color. I happen to really be partial to this almost blue purple that you've got going on.
Yeah, I think that purple is my favorite. It's really tough with the orange because orange has been my favorite color answer since I was in like 5th grade. But purple is really soothing.
I will tell you, it's very rare to see orange or yellow like that used in a Desmos curriculum activity because they are not very high contrast against the white background. So it's very rare that we use them. So me using this here was kind of just a fun little moment of playing around, but it's very rare to see something like that in the curriculum because of how low contrast they are. Okay, so how are we getting these colors to change? Well, I've graphed those as points using a list. Okay, so they're all basically a single graphed object. If you look to the left in the expression list, we've got a whole rainbow of colors there.
Yeah.
I've defined the colors in another folder.
Okay.
It's a list of colors.
And then on the click, we're sending off this action color thing, which is going to hide our paper. We're familiar with that. I'm going to get rid of that for a moment.
Sure.
Just so that I can make changes without having to hit the print button.
In fact, can you slide that index color just so that we see what's going on there? We've got the second color, the third color. So each color corresponds, it's a part of a list. And this index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 corresponds to the color, but it also corresponds to which point is being graphed. So if we make a list of those indices as you're doing right now, and we label this according to those, and maybe, yeah, we'll put those to the side.
Yeah, I'm a step ahead of you.
Thank you, I love it. So if you click on one of those now, you're gonna see the color index changes to the exact number. And that's because when you look at that action, I've written it as a function, and in that function, I've got this word index. That's not gonna be usable anywhere in the expression list unless you've actually hooked up an action to something, okay? So elsewhere in the expression list, that just looks mathified still. It's not a special command. But once I'm in something that's graphed using a list, I can now grab the index of the item that I click. Okay, so those points are graphed in order 1 through 7. So when I use that special INDEX, the index, it's going to be able to pull the exact index of the object that I've clicked. So yeah, that's how we change the color.
That feels very comprehensive. I feel like I've got an excellent understanding of your printer graph now. Thank you for walking me through that. I'm still partial to mine. I think we should replace it in the curriculum right now.
Well,
and,
I don't think one has to win over the other. Your seal can be friends with my swan. How's that?
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it.
So I think I'd love to maybe just close off with what are some ways that people could play around with actions on their own. What are some maybe challenges that people could challenge themselves to build?
Yeah. I would love to see more iterations on scaling up a figure and making it smaller. There's an interesting thing that happens if I make this negative, like it flips around, which makes me wonder about like rotating the shape as you click on something. Maybe I've got like a quarter turn around. So that would be a cool direction to go in.
I am very interested in if someone builds like a transformation thing where you could click on reflect over the x-axis and maybe that just multiplies all the y coordinates by -1. And so and then another action that might shift it left 1 and shift it right 1, and we can see this like non-commutative relationship between the actions. I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah,
what are
I got interested as you were talking about this. Is XY the shape of your swan?
Yeah.
So if I make your X go 2 units to the right, can I do that? No, I can't.
If you open up the background in tablet, is it because it's in a?
Oh, because it's in a
Probably
table.
because it's in a table. Yeah.
Yeah. So for now, table entries can't be updated with the actions.
But list entries can. If it's just written as a list, we can update that with an action. And same with.
Yeah. So if anyone's
variables.
doing that transformation thing, keep that in mind.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd love to see the way people use indexing. That's one of the things that to me is really fascinating about this. And even if it's just clicking points, do you want to just open up another graph and we'll just very quickly and very briefly make a graph that uses index, kind of live build it?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let me make a grid for myself. And then we'll do X comma Y. And
Lovely.
all of those lovely things. Oops.
Okay. So yeah, let's just maybe make a point, like a larger point behind that set of points that maybe we can move to the location that we click. Can we do that?
Okay, we absolutely can. Right now, I've got it defined as P, and I can click and drag all of that stuff. I want to put the label numbers in here, like so.
Yep.
And so you said click on this thing, and then the point will move to it. So I'll do a clickable. And I called that thing P. And so now I want P to become my grid at that index.
Oh my gosh. Is that really all there is to it?
That's really all there is to it.
Wow, look at that. And this is just blowing my mind. It's still draggable. Look at that. You can still drag it.
I want to put a circle around it. Okay, well, this is really dangerous because now I've found myself making tweaks and modifications, which I will never stop doing if we don't.
You will never stop. You will never stop. So Andrew, it's been lovely talking about this with you. I think this is about all that we have to share with actions. But I would say that if anybody who's been watching this is interested in exploring more of this, just test it out, build some stuff, send us an email or tweet us with a graph that you're proud of. And I'm just going to check into the Q&A here. Do we have to use subscripts to name the actions?
We don't. One of the things I'm super interested in is what kind of names people standardize on for their actions. You and I, Suzanne, we love subscripts because like
we do.
I will often open up one of your graphs and like, whoa, what does A do? I don't know, but oh, it's an action and it's supposed to increment something. Oh, okay, that's nice and clear. But yeah, it would work the same if I called that just A.
Yep. I will say that the larger and more complex you build your graphs to be, the easier it will be for you as you go back and look at your graphs if you start subscripting with things that mean something to you. And also, for those of you who have never tried this, you can do Control F to find things within an expression list. And so that's another reason why we've found as interaction developers that we really love to use detailed subscripts, because if I'm just searching through an expression list for X, it's gonna show up, like it's gonna have maybe 15 lines with X, versus if I have X with a very specific subscript, now I can find exactly what I'm looking for. So can you build things without subscripting? Yep, you've got basically almost as many letters in the alphabet as there are letters. Wait, I did not really say that right.
You can use any letter except E. Yes,
there are a few letters like X, like E, like Y. I would say like pi, but that's not a letter in our alphabet. It's a letter in the Greek alphabet. But there are a few letters that we can't use as variable names. But yeah, I would say subscripting is entirely a personal choice.
All right, Isaiah has unmuted himself. We got to stop talking, Suzanne.
Okay, all right, we're gonna stop
I
talking.
actually wanted to boost a question from earlier that I answered, but I think answered incorrectly. So there was a question about the hover action over your buttons. So if you were to go to the colors, for example, I noticed when you hover over those, you get a slightly less opaque circle around that. How did you guys accomplish that hover?
Ooh, great. You know what? I'm so glad you brought this up. So hover states, there are some default hover states. So these are points. They're just points that are graphed at a larger size. I want to say maybe 40 or 50 or something like that. So for points, the hover state is just that they get this little halo when you're over them. For images, the hover state, I've defined some hover states for the plus and minus buttons, and I've uploaded separate images for hover state and depress state. For the print button, I've left it as the defaults. So Andrew, if you hover over that print button,
Yeah, so I
it
see
just
that
kind of
it
gets a little lighter. And then when you
out.
press it, what happens? It gets a
Nice and
little,
dark.
it gets a little darker. And you'll see when you click the print button, click and hold on the print buttons, the little circle with the image icon to the left of it. In this particular one, I did not upload those separate images. Those are defaults that are built in for if you don't happen to have a separate image for what you want the depressed state to look like or the hovered state to look like. Other types of graphed elements have their own ways that we've built them. I think some of the things just get either a more opaque or less opaque if it's, say, a graphed line. But many times I use images for clickables, just because I find that they're just really nice. They make the interface look professional.
I'm getting something funny here with the line that I just tried to graph. It's not actually letting me click on it, but in general, we get the halos around the graphed elements, and then images, we replace the hovered state and the depressed state. If we feel like it, sometimes the defaults are perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, guys.
Thank you.
Again, this graph came from one of our Try It lessons, which are available on teacher.desmos.com. If you click preview the curriculum, in the graphic calculator, you can open any graph you see to understand a little bit better about how it's been made. Maybe I'll do one last call for questions or anything else in the chat or the Q&A.
Yeah, I'd be really cautious about actually opening up the graphs in our release curriculum. Just the nature of building these things, we end up with some remnants of earlier builds and don't always get to clean up the graphs. So if you're trying to learn from the curriculum, best of luck to you.
Well, I would also just say there's a lot of added stuff in there to make sure that as we're checking student correctness, for example, that we don't accidentally mark something that's close but not exact because of, say, floating point, that we don't. So I would say, yeah, when you're pulling a graph straight from an activity, it's usually going to be almost 2 to 3 times bulkier than it would be if I'm just building this graph here. I don't know, how many lines is this one, Andrew? Right here.
45
ish. Yeah. In the curriculum, it might be, 60 to 70. Maybe not 200, but it's also usually pulling things from other screens in the activity. So yeah. We will toss a link to this graph in the chat. Maybe Andrew, you can do that. And yeah, any other, it looks like there might be. Are you hiring for people who like to fiddle and learn things? We are a bunch of people that love to fiddle and learn things, and always hiring for various roles. Check out careers. But yeah. Okay, I think that's it from us. Isaiah, thank you for hosting this. It's been really fun to be a part of this. So excited about actions, and thank you for allowing us to come share.
Of course, I'll put in one last plug for help.desmos.com. As you can see on the screen, there is all kinds of documentation for actions, for correctness, for any of the other features that we've just discussed today or that you may find on help.desmos.com. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time at What's New at Desmos.